maybe you could say, yeah, it's better to go do these other things, but I also still want to enjoy my life as well too, which I am in all regards and all facets, which is great. There's been magic. Magic is happening, bro. It's happened every single day, every single instance, every single moment, which has been absolutely magnificent and wonderful. So, I have just come to realize that certain things are in place in the ways that they have not been in place beforehand. Because it's like the only time that anything can ever happen is right now, and I had to do some other things before I could do this. So I've talked about this a couple of times, but I like touching on it. We can always change it if we need to, but I can do a lot in a year. We can all do a lot in a year with dedicated focus, determination, resilience, whatever it may be. A lot can happen in a year. So that's more of how I'm starting to frame things and look at things, is like, everybody wants the 6-week solution, they want the 6-week plan, they want the 6-week whatever it may be, which is great. Don't get me wrong. However, it's about creating everlasting change. Because I can go to the gym for 6 weeks. Yeah, sure, I can lose a couple of pounds, whatever it is, or I can complete this challenge. Which I just recalled this moment of this one girl that I was talking with beforehand, and she did like a 6-week free training, boxing training thing or something along those lines, where if she met this certain quota, or if she met this certain weight, or made this certain thing, whatever it may have been, then she would have got the whole program for free for the 6 weeks. And this is, I guess, a gamble, or not even a gamble, a decision that certain businesses can make to be able to obtain this level of clarity, I would say, and or new clients. Because like, you can run 6-week programs and give them that guarantee, and you understand that there's probably going to be a very small percentage of people that do end up like completing the challenge and they don't have to pay for it. But then there's going to be those other people that also do complete the challenge, like, I really enjoyed this challenge, I want to continue working with you indefinitely. And there's going to be the other ones that don't complete the challenge and they're going to have to pay for it regardless. And you always take the money up front, and then if you want to change it, then you can just change it afterwards. And if they didn't make it, or if they did make it, you can refund them their money, or you can give them on a membership of like, hey, you did great, this can go forward for your next 6-week membership or whatever it may be, or for the next 6 weeks of like monthly payments, or this, whatever, like the price point that you end up doing for that said program. I find it very useful, especially because once some people get trained, they would get trained more. And that's where I say, like, I was always under the impression of I'm just focusing on like, what do I get from this first like 30 days or whatever it may be. And now I've started to shift my thinking, my paradigm, my perspective to be in a much more like long-term type of point of view. Because when I go to the gym, like, I go to the gym every single day. Like, that's something that I do constantly, day in and day out, without question. Which, if I'm doing that day in and day out without question, and I've been doing that for about a decade now at this point. So it's one of those things where it's just like, it's just a matter of like getting that initial ball moving. And this morning I was listening to sales calls from some other people, well, one other person, just kind of see how they handle like objections and handle pricing and things like that. And dude, it's, to me, I'm just like, it's kind of crazy. It makes sense when we think about it, and because there's always competition in every way, shape, or form, and it's just about getting a small little slice of the pie and helping out enough people in those said regards. Like, that's really all it comes down to. Which is what I would like to do. So I was talking with a buddy of mine, who's where I'm going to go get the brisket today as well too. And we touched on that, or I touched on that a little bit, where I was just like, we don't have to be the same person that we were like a moment ago. Like, we've changed throughout the night of the conversation with the things that we did talk about. And I was like, so technically, like, you and I, we are no longer the same person that we were when we originally entered the room. And he's kind of like, well, what do you mean by that? I'm like, well, if you think about it, like, we have, like, our cells have been growing, our body has been moving, our hair has been growing. Like, all these things have been happening without our conscious awareness of it. So we are always a new person in every single moment of every single day of every single second. He's like, yeah, I guess, like, you could look at it that way. I'm like, yeah, because if you think about it, each moment you don't have to be the same person. You're almost killing off or integrating other aspects of the other person that we had in our original self, which to me, dude, like that seems like it's a more enjoyable way, because sometimes you could say that you're being inauthentic to yourself when you go around with different people and you start to act differently around those other people. But then I'm like, we always act differently around the people that we're around. We act differently around our parents, around our friends, by ourselves. Like, we're always acting differently. So there's never a constant in our behavior. Like, there can be, but there also like isn't at the exact same time. It's a paradox in a sense when we think about it, because like I act this way around so-and-so, like when I'm talking to the camera, it may be different than when I'm just like having friends or something like that and talking like one-on-one with you personally. There's always these different dynamics that I've come to realize, where it's not that you're being inauthentic to yourself, it's not that you're changing what you do, because it is like you're still you in that said scenario, that said question, that said situation. You just may be acting and or behaving slightly different around the person that you are, but like you remain, but like the information that you're sharing with that person may be completely different. Because I've had times where I've gone out and had friends there's lots of birds, and I've had friends where one friend has been friends with the other guy for decades basically, and then I come in, we start having a conversation and chatting, and he tells me the story that the other guy who's been friends with the other person for like 10 years, he's like, I've never heard this story. And I'm able to draw those stories out of people, which I just find it fun and exciting, because then I get to hear these things that I wouldn't have originally heard, and it just becomes more of an enjoyable experience, I would say, as a whole. So yeah, that's just kind of my little 2 cents on changing or shifting perspectives or acting in a different way than you were acting prior, because we're always just playing a character, we're always just playing a role, and it's just a matter of like what type of character and or role do you want to play. That's kind of my take, that's my approach, because we're never the same person, at least I'm not, and I have a feeling that you aren't as well. We're always just doing things differently for different reasons, whatever that may be. Something that I like to think about, and why I'm always under the impression of, well, if we're thinking and we're helping and we're serving and we're doing all these other ways of creating or whatever it may be, then something shifts within us, because we just start to act a different role. Like every movie character that we ever see, that movie character is completely different than who you would see if, like, say you ran into them in real life. And it's just like, we look at those people as if like they're strained, like we actually admire those people, because like they're so well at encapsulating that said role, that said character, that just embodies them. And that's where I say, like, if we imagine that the game of life is just a big old play, then we can just start to play a different character that we want to play. We can do it at any time, because I was reading this book called The Spiritual Brain, and we've come to realize that throughout life, there's a Mercedes G-Wagon, like brand new matte black, right next to me, which looks pretty cool. I like things, bro. I know you don't need to like things, but I like things. Some people are like, you don't need things. And I'm just like, bro, like, if you have the money and you did the work, like, you know, might as well have some nice things. Nothing wrong with luxury. It's not a way of like proving that you're better than somebody else. It's just like, I just like nice things. But with movie actors and actors as a whole, when I think about them, it's just like we praise them for being able to take on these different characters. And if we imagine that the game of life, the world that we're in right now, is also just a play, then all we have to do is just change the character. And like I was saying with the book, The Spiritual Brain, a lot of people have always assumed or just believed or were under the impression that she's young too, it looks like. OnlyFans model maybe? I don't know. Whatever it is, congrats to her, bro. That's what she wants, and I love it. Proves to me even more that it's possible. Because when we see other people do the said thing, we realize that it's possible as well too. So that's where I say, like, when we are playing a character or role in the film, because like all of us that we are in right now, we're just playing a role that either somebody assigned to us if we aren't conscious of it, but then once we become conscious of our own awareness, then at that point you're able to free yourself up, so that then you can start to have your own individual experience that you hadn't had prior to this point in time. Which to me, that's just fascinating, that like you can change the character, you can change the life, you can change your perspective in a single moment, in a single instance. It takes a little bit of work, as all things do. Still, you have the power, the potential, the capabilities to be able to create something out of nothing, to be able to change who you are. And you can be like, well, that's inauthentic, but it's just like, how do you even know that the person that you are right now is the person that you were always meant to be? How do you know that it wasn't something that was preconditioned into your own self to then just behave in that said way? Like, ever since you were born, everybody was always just telling you these are the things that you're meant to do and this is what you will end up doing. But did you ever ask yourself, like, what do I want to do? How do I want to live? What do I want out of life? What type of character or role do I want to play? Because like I said, we're all just acting in our own play. So I'm always under the impression I don't want to limit myself or what I have for me. I would much rather have the influx of abundance, the influx of freedom, the influx of clients, the influx of people that I can help out, the influx of everything, basically, because I'm just under the impression, why limit ourselves when there's no reason to limit yourself? Like, to me, it just doesn't comprehend within my mind when we are limitless beings, when we are limitless individuals, when we are limitless divine creatures. And obviously that's just my 2 cents to this whole rigmarole of things, but I like the 2 cents. I like the idea. I like the perspective, and you don't have to take it on. This is just my little way of hopefully adding a little bit of different perspective, because I didn't know that these things existed in the first place, and now that I do, I'm like, oh, okay. It's always been that simple. It's always been that simple. Our minds like to overcomplicate things a lot, so I do my best not to do that anymore, even though from time to time it still does happen, but I tried not to make it happen as much as I once did, whereas that I did it all. So yeah, we'll go get some brisket. And then we'll see what happens from there.